welcome back to another video. Now today, because it's the international break, I thought what we'd do is review each championship team's start to the season. I'm joined by Sophie for this. How are you feeling, Soph?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. But yeah, we're going to review each team. We're going to give them a rating out of 10 and just have a little discussion about how we think their season's going to go. So we'll do it alphabetically, starting with AFC Bournemouth. What have you made of them, Soph?
Yes, I think they're sitting about 4th in the table, so they've had a strong start to the season. When we played them, I thought they looked very good. I think it was a 3-1 win to them. Yeah, clinical, very good team. So I think, yeah, I predicted them to go up in our championship video at the beginning of the season, and I think they will, to be honest. I know they're sitting 4th at the moment, but they're looking very solid. Yeah,
I think you predicted them to finish in the playoffs, which is where they are. I predicted them to finish mid-table, so how wrong am I? I think Bournemouth, they've been really good. Lots of draws. They've only lost the one game, so if they can turn more of those draws into wins, I think, yeah, they're definitely going to be in the top 6, if not the top 2 this season. But I'm going to give Bournemouth a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with you there. I'd say 9 out of 10 as well.
Okay, the next club then is from Yorkshire. It's Barnsley Football Club. Now, they survived on the final day of the season last year, and they stayed in the championship, and we both predicted them to do okay this season, and they are doing all right. They're actually they're 16th in the table. What have you made of them?
Do you know what? They didn't start like that. I think the first couple of games they didn't get anything from, if I'm correct there. But the past few games they beat Watford. I think they beat QPR. So I think they've been solid. I mean, when we played Watford, they're a very good team, and they've shown that. But they did prove to us then that they're beatable. But yeah, Barnsley, they're grinding out results. They're not doing as bad as I thought they would against the bigger teams, so fair play to them. Yeah,
I think they've won 3 of their last 4. What are you going to give them out of 10, Sophie?
Do you know what? I'd give them an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, okay, that's fair enough. 8 out of 10 for Barnsley. The next club then is Birmingham City. Now, Birmingham City are actually sitting 1 place below Barnsley, 17th in the table. They're not looking great, are they?
No, from what I've seen, they're not really getting many results at all. They're sitting quite low down in the table. They're our next game, and I think we could get a result there. Obviously, we're both going to be at home, so it doesn't make a difference. But yeah, not had a very good start to the season at all.
No, they're not scoring lots. I mean, they're not conceding a huge amount either. They're just sort of sat above the relegation zone, but they're not exactly pushing on towards mid-table or the top half. So I'm going to give Birmingham a 6 out of 10 because obviously they've been in the championship for a few years, and I feel like they could do better than where they're at.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The next club then is Blackburn Rovers. Now they actually sit in mid-table. What have you made of them?
Very inconsistent. They can beat teams 3-4-0, but then get beat quite heavily as well. So I think they've had an okay start to the season, but if they just turn some of those defeats into draws and then keep winning and battering teams like they are, they'll have a very good season.
Yeah, they've won lots of games by big margins. They had a pretty bad October where they only won the 1 game. They're 12th in the league, but they've scored the most goals. It's really bizarre. What would you give them out of 10, Sophie?
Do you know what? I'd give them a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I think that's fair for Blackburn. I think we both know on their day they're capable of getting into that top 6. So they need to be a bit more consistent, and I'm sure they'll get promoted. Well, make the top 6, I mean. But yeah, we'll move on to the next one. Next up then we have Brentford from London playing in that new stadium. What have you made of them?
Yeah, not bad start. I don't know where they're sitting in the table.
They're 11th at the moment.
11th, okay. I thought they were higher than that. They seem to start quite strong, but I don't know if it's recently they've started to drop off a little bit. We played them and I thought they were decent. But yeah, I think I predicted them to finish very high in the table, and they're not sitting too high at the moment. I know there's a long season ahead, but we'll see how it goes for them.
Yeah, I think Brentford, they've been okay. I mean, they haven't been bad, but we both know that they can do better. They finished 3rd in the championship last year, so for them to be mid-table, it's not very like Brentford. But we are very early into the season. I think by the end of the season, they will be in the top 6. They looked very good against Coventry. They beat us 2-0. I'm going to rank them, and I'm going to give them a 7 out of 10. I think that's fair because they haven't been disastrous, but there is room for improvement at Brentford. Next up then we have Bristol City, who started really, really well. What have you made of them?
Yeah, started very well. I don't know if they're doing so well recently.
They're 5th in the table.
Yeah, that's pretty solid. I think I predicted them to be quite far down the table, so so far I'm very, very far off there. But yeah, when we played them first game of the season, I thought we could have won that. But then they showed their class there and they got the win. I think it was a 2-1 win. And yeah, following on from that, they've been pretty solid.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they won their first 4 games, I think, and then they had a bit of a shocking October and they fell down the table a bit, but they're still in the playoffs after, I think they've won their last 2 games now. So Bristol City, it's another one where if they can be more consistent, then they're definitely going to be up there. I'm going to give them an 8 out of 10 because I think they'd probably be a 9 or a 10 if they hadn't have dipped away, but to be in the playoffs is pretty solid for Bristol City. Next up then we have Cardiff City. What have you made of them?
So another team that's been pretty inconsistent. I think they're sitting fairly low down the table as well. Like
15th, yeah.
Yeah, mid-table. We've got them coming up and I hope we win, but we could see how good they really are when we play them. Not really seen many of their matches, so I don't know if they're playing well. But yeah, if they're 15th in the table, they're obviously not doing that good.
Yeah, I think they've been okay. They're just struggling for a bit of form. I think they've picked up quite a few decent results away from home, so if they can get more wins at home like they did against Barnsley last week, then I'm sure they'll be fine. But yeah, a little bit below par. What would you give them out of 10?
Probably a 6.5.
6.5, okay. I didn't think we were doing 0.5s, but okay, 6.5. Okay, the next one then is our club, Coventry City. Now, if it was based on performances, probably an 8, but it's on results. I don't think it would be an 8. What have you made of them?
No, I mean, I didn't expect masses coming up from League One. It's a big step up and we knew that. So I think some fans are very unrealistic, thinking we should go into these games and it's going to be a dead set win, it's going to be easy. That's not the case at all, and it's shown that very early on in the season. We are playing well, just we've got no points to show for it. Our game management has been so poor. When we're winning or drawing, last few minutes of the game we're making silly mistakes, and it's players from all over the park. It's not just our defence making the mistakes. So I think if we can improve like our defence and like keep on scoring, we're gonna be a decent team. We've shown that. We've had some really good performances, but we're very low down in the table. Just above the relegation zone, I think it is.
Yeah, one place above the relegation zone. I think you're right about the game management. We've actually conceded the most goals in the league, which is really strange when you think we had the best defence in League One last season. So we need to get on top of that because scoring goals hasn't really been a problem. We've scored quite a few. Just defensively, we need to improve. We've got a couple of big games coming up, Birmingham and Cardiff. You'd think we'd need to try and get some points out of them. But what would you give us out of 10 so far, Soph?
I mean, I knew it was going to be hard, but I'd probably say 5.5, 6 maybe, because we're very
give
low
them a
down
6.
the table.
Yeah, we'll give them a 6. Okay, the next one then is a real surprise, Derby County, who actually sit bottom of the table. What have you made of them?
I would never have put any amount of money on them to sit bottom at this stage. I think I predicted them to be like in and around the playoffs because they usually are.
We both did. We both predicted Derby to finish in the playoffs.
I mean, they're now bottom because Sheffield Wednesday had their points reduced to -6 instead, but very poor start to the season. I don't know why that is.
Yeah, I agree. I think Derby have been very poor, and personally I don't think they will go down. I think they've had a really bad start, but usually when a big club in the Championship has a bad start, they turn it around at some point in the season. I think Derby County will, but they've only picked up the 1 win so far. I'm going to give them a 4 out of 10, but I think things will improve over the season. Okay, next up then we have Huddersfield Town, who are actually sitting 13th. Reasonable from them?
Yeah, pretty standard start to what I would predict from them. I think I said they'd be maybe a little bit lower than that. Actually, I think I did a lot lower than that. But yeah, I think they'll probably finish around there as well. So their start is pretty standard to what I expected. Yeah,
really reasonable start from Huddersfield. I think they lost their first 2 or 3 games, but they bounced back and they've picked up a few decent wins. They're sort of struggling for form. They get a good result here and then they get a loss there. Really hard to predict Huddersfield. So for them to be mid-tables, reasonably good. What would you give them out of 10?
Probably 6.5 again.
Okay, yeah, 6.5. We'll give them that. Next up, we have Luton Town, who've been pretty good so far this season. I mean, they fell away a little bit, but then they picked up a few results. What have you made of them?
Do you know, I've actually been quite impressed with them. They're not winning by massive margins, but they're getting the odd like 1-0 win here and there. And yeah, I think they've started pretty well, to be honest.
Yeah, the good thing with Luton Town is they're not really settling for draws. They're trying to win as many games as they can. They've only drawn 2 and they've won 5 out of 11, which is basically half of their games, which means that's why they're quite high up in the table. They're actually sitting 10th in the table, and we both predicted them to be in and around the relegation zone, so apologies to the Luton Town fans. What would you give them out of 10, Soph?
Do you know what? I'd give them a 7.5 out of 10.
7.5.
Yeah.
And the thing is, from Luton, if they keep this up over the course of the season, you never know. Teams like that can just have one really good season where they can maybe challenge for the playoffs, but we'll see how the season goes. Maybe it was just a good start. We'll see how it goes. Next up then, we've got Middlesbrough, and they are sat 7th, and they've only lost 1 game, and they've got the best defence in the league.
Wow. Yeah, I've been dead impressed with Middlesbrough. I really, really rate their manager, Neil Warnock. I think they're going to have a really good season. Can't remember what I predicted for them, but I've probably changed my mind, and I do think they're going to be up there and challenging this season.
Yeah, I think we both predicted them to be mid-table. They weren't great last season, but they've got Neil Warnock this season, and I think they probably will make the top 6. Their defence is just so reliable. When we played them, we just couldn't break through it. They were very solid, and they've picked up quite a lot of clean sheets. I think Middlesbrough will be in and around the top 6 at the end of the season. What do you give them out of 10, Soph?
Probably an 8.5. I've been very impressed with them, so yeah.
8.5. Okay, next up then we have Millwall Football Club from the Den. Now they're sat 9th in the table. What have you made of them?
Yeah, to sit 9th, you've got to be playing pretty well. So I think, yeah, I didn't expect them to start this well, to be honest. I've been pleasantly surprised by them. They're another team that's a little bit inconsistent, but we'll see how the rest of the season goes for them.
Yeah, they seem quite good. I think they've drawn quite a lot of games. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think they've drawn 5 of their 11 games, which isn't great. I always think a team that draws games, you know, you could have obviously won those games. Now Millwall, I think I predicted them to be in and around the playoffs, and they definitely could be. I'm going to give Millwall an 8 out of 10, but I definitely think they could break into that top 6 at some point in this season. Next up then we have Norwich City, who've obviously come down from the Premier League, and they're doing alright, aren't they?
Yeah, I probably would have expected this from them. I think they're sitting about 3rd in the table. Would have thought, yeah, they'd be 2nd or 3rd at this point in the season. Yeah, they're not absolutely battering teams, but it doesn't matter. They're still getting the 3 points, and that's all that matters at the end of the day. Yeah,
I totally agree with that. They're not, like you said, battering teams. They're picking up these wins by 1 goal, but you win the league on points, not on goal difference. I think Norwich City will be up there. We both predicted them to finish 2nd, so the fact that they're 3rd means we're pretty much right. They've won 6 of their 11 games, and they are starting to hit a bit of form. What would you give them out of 10?
I'd probably give them a 9 out of 10, because, yeah, pretty decent start. So, yeah, 9 out of 10 is pretty fair.
Yep, no, I'd agree with that. Next up then we have Nottingham Forest, who are 20th in the table. They didn't have a great start, but they've won back-to-back games. What have you made of them?
Yeah, I would not have expected this from them at all. They're very, very low down in the table, and they don't belong there at all. They're a good team. They're not playing well at all. Yeah, they're a big team as well, like a big club, so they should be a lot higher up in the table. Yeah, when we played them, I wasn't impressed by them at all. I didn't think they played that well.
Yeah, I mean, they ground out the win against us. Obviously, we missed lots of good chances against Nottingham Forest. And then after that, they've just gone and beaten Wycombe 2-0. So they are starting to get a bit of a gap ahead of the relegation zone. And I did expect that from them. Although they started very poorly, I do think Nottingham Forest will climb and probably finish around mid-table. What do you give them out of 10 for their start, though?
Probably about 6. I've been very impressed.
Not been a great start, but I think they will improve.
Yeah.
Next up then we have Preston North End, who are sat just below mid-table. What have you made of them?
Yeah, strange start. From what I've seen, they've won more games away from home than they have at home. I don't know whether that's just because there's no crowds at any of the games, so there's no real home advantage anymore. Yeah, bit of an inconsistent team again, but not had the worst start in the world.
No, I mean, I predicted them to be in and around the playoffs. I think maybe just outside the playoffs. So the fact that they're 14th is a little bit bizarre, but it's early on, things can change. I think they've lost 6 of their 11 games, which isn't great. They need to cut those defeats out, try and pick up a few more points, but I think they'll be okay this season. Not the best start though, I'd give them a 6 out of 10. Now next up we have Queen's Park Rangers, one of the only teams Coventry City have beaten this season. Now they're sat 18th in the table. They're struggling for form.
Yeah, not had the best of starts. I mean, losing to us it's pretty rare. I mean, how many wins have we had now?
2.
Wow. So, when we played them, obviously they got 2 goals against us, but they didn't look that good. They're getting beat fairly often, hence why they're sitting so low down in the table. So, very poor start from them.
Yeah, QPR, I don't think they'll go down, but I don't think it'll be a great season for them. I think they'll be in the bottom half. They're just struggling for form. They've obviously lost a lot of their good players like Eze. I think they lost Hugill as well. They lost a lot of their goal scorers from last season, so I think they're just sort of struggling to gel as a new team. But I don't think they'll get relegated. What have you made of them? What would you give them out of 10?
Probably 6.5, 6.
Yeah,
Not
we'll
that
give them a 6. Yeah, QPR can have a 6. Next up then we have Reading, who started fantastically well, but in their last 3 games they've lost them, so really strange.
Yeah, very, very good start to the season. I think that caught everyone by surprise, to be honest. They are overachieving. They shouldn't be sitting top of the table, and I don't think they will be come later on in the season and the end of the season. They're not going to be finishing up there, in my opinion. But yeah, very strong, very, very strong start, so you can't take that away from them. I just think that now they're going to start losing a lot more and getting some points, and they're going to start dropping down the table.
I think personally this international break couldn't have come at a better time for Reading. They obviously started really, really well, and then Coventry beat them and we've just unsettled them. They've lost 3 games in a row and their form was really declining. So this international break is a good time for them to restart, refresh, and they're still top of the league, so that means, like, you know, if you've lost 3 games in a row and you're still top of the league, that just goes to show how good their start to the season was. A lot of people do think they'll fall away. I think for Reading, they just need to try and get some more points and stay in that top 6 for as long as possible, because if they start to fall down the table, then things will just start getting worse for them. But I think it's been a very good start. I'm going to give them a 9 out of 10. It would have been a 10 out of 10 if they didn't lose those 3 games in a row, but a lot of positives for Reading. Next up then we have Rotherham United. They've been the best of the promoted teams so far. What have you made of them?
Yeah, not a terrible start. They're only, I think, a couple of points above us, so they're not like massively playing better than us. However, they are getting points and they are getting more wins. So yeah, I think they've had a pretty strong start to the season, and I think it's going to be pretty much consistent to this throughout the season. I don't think they're going to get massively better. I don't think they're going to get worse. I think in this form they could stay up.
Yeah, I think personally, from what I've seen of the 3 promoted teams, I think we'll all be in that bottom 7 or 8. Maybe 1 or 2 of us might survive, but personally I don't think all 3 of us will survive. Rotherham, yeah, they've been the best of the promoted bunch. They've been in every game. Their goal difference isn't bad. You know, they haven't been battered by anyone yet. And I think Rotherham, they might just be okay this season, but I think it'd be fine margins. What do you give them out of 10?
I'll probably give them a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, that sounds about fair. Okay, the next one then is Sheffield Wednesday. Now, a really crazy start to the season, obviously starting on -12. I predicted them to finish bottom. You predicted them to just survive. They won their first game. They then drew their second game. They then went through a bit of a strange sort of form. And then things have really taken a turn with that 6 points being added back onto their season. Do you think they'll survive?
I think they will. I'm going to stick with what I said at the beginning of the season. I think they are going to come good, and this, like the point reduction being reduced to 6 instead of 12, is going to be massive for them. That could be the change in it at the end of the season. They're now not sitting bottom of the table anymore, and I think they're going to keep rising. That's if they do grind out results, because at the moment they're very inconsistent. I thought they'd be performing better than this, but yeah, fairly poor start to the season.
Yeah, I mean, they are struggling for form. It's not that important when they are getting the results here and there. I think they'll be pleased that they're now off the bottom. They'll be pleased that they're into positive points, and that 6 points being added back on is massive for morale. I think Sheffield Wednesday will start to climb out of that relegation zone, which isn't good for Coventry, but obviously great for the Sheffield Wednesday fans. What would you give them out of 10?
Probably say about a 7.
Yeah, a 7 out of 10 sounds about fair. They are struggling for a bit of form. Next up then we have Stoke City, who are sat 8th in the table.
Yeah, do you know what? They're a good team. I think they're gonna be in and around the playoffs come end of the season. They are getting some results here and there. If they just become like really consistent, then they're going to have a good end of the season as well. But yeah, they've had a fairly good start to the season.
Yeah, always really hard to predict where Stoke are going to finish. When they first came down from the Premier League, everyone expected them to go back up. They obviously didn't. Now this season they've got a decent squad, but they are struggling for form. In their last 5 games they've won, lost, won. So that means they're sort of, you know what I mean, they can't really move up or down the table. So I think they will be in that cluster around the playoffs. Whether they'll get into it, I'm not too sure. Out of 10, I'm probably going to give Stoke City a 7. I think their fans will be fairly pleased, but they could definitely sneak into that playoffs because they're not a million miles behind it. Next up then we have Swansea City, who are sat in the playoffs. They are actually 6th. What have you made of them?
Yeah, do you know what? I think they've had a pretty good start to the season. I've been fairly impressed with them. They are getting results here and there. I mean, they've got a good squad though, so you would expect it. They've got some really good players in there that you'd think, okay, maybe they could still play in the Premier League. They're not, but they had a pretty good start to the season, in my opinion. Yeah,
I think Swansea City have been okay. When Coventry played them, I think we could have beaten them. I think Swansea had a bit of an off day there. But other than that, I think Swansea have been quite impressive. They finished 6th last season, and that's where they are at the moment this season. It wouldn't surprise me if that's where they finish this season. But they need to make sure they keep picking up results because there's a lot of teams trying to break into those playoffs. What would you give them out of 10 for their start?
Do you know, I'll probably give them 7.5, 8 out of 10.
Yep, no, that's fair enough. Okay, next up then we have Watford Football Club, who are sat 2nd. They've just beaten Coventry 3-2, which was really frustrating, but they're a team that seem to grind out results. What do you think?
I mean, some of the players on their team, I think I predicted them to finish top or 2nd. They've got a very, very good squad. They've got a big squad as well, and some of their players, they are Premier League quality. We've seen them get results and score in the Prem, and now they're doing it in the Championship as well. I mean, that Sarr, what a player. But they didn't massively impress me when we played them. Obviously they beat us, but I think that's more due to us and our naivety instead of their class.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think Coventry could have got something from that game. But other than that, it goes to show that Watford can grind out results. They beat Stoke 3-2 in the game before that. And then they've obviously beat us 3-2. I think that there's going to be lots of goals in their games this season. And I do think they'll definitely be in the top 6. They've got lots of quality all over their pitch. I'm going to give them a 9 out of 10 because they're in the top 2. Okay, the next club and the last club is Wycombe Wanderers. What have you made of them?
Do you know what? They had a very, very bad start to the season, and I thought this is why I predicted you to be so low down in the table, because you're not cut out for the Championship. But over recent games, they're getting points here and there, and do you know what? They're not a pushover at all. I've got a bit of a weak spot for them, and I don't know why. And I do hope they do well. Not better than Coventry, because we want to stay up, and if that means they go down, then see you later. But do you know what? They've had an all right start to the season over the past couple of games. They could have had a lot worse start, which I would have predicted. But no, it's been okay for Wycombe.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think at the start of the season, everyone tipped them to go down, both of us included in that. And they started with a few defeats in a row, which, wasn't great. And the annoying thing for them was they were performing quite well in those defeats and just kept losing by 1 goal, which was really frustrating. But they did get that back-to-back wins. I think the draw against Watford was massive for them because it gave them a platform. It made them know that they can get points in this division. They bounced on from that with back-to-back wins, obviously. They've just lost to Forest 2-0, but I think the improvement is there, and they just need to stay in touching distance this whole season, because if they get cut adrift, it'll be too far. It'll be too far for them to come back. What would you give them out of 10, Soph?
Purely because they're doing a little bit better than I expected, probably a 7.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, 7 for Wycombe, and obviously they're still in the bottom 3, but things are improving for them. Just before we sign off, guys, I've got 2 questions prepared for Sophie. I haven't pre-warned her, so she's going to have to think of these on the spot. Which 3 teams are going to get promoted, and which 3 teams are going to get relegated from the Championship? Go.
Okay, on the spot, promoted: Watford, Bournemouth, and Middlesbrough through the playoffs.
Oh, I like that.
Relegated: Derby, if they don't improve, Wycombe, I think Coventry. I hope not.
Right, okay, never mind, shouldn't have asked that question. Okay, cheers for watching, guys. Make sure to like the video, subscribe as well if you haven't already. We're on the road to 1,000 subs. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment as well, and let me know if you agree or disagree with what we've predicted and what we've thought of the opening start to the season. And we'll see you in the next video, guys. Peace out.